I don't
All
know.
right.
The Power
Grant.
Glove is not compatible with any game, actually.
It's not. Grant, our last segment, a new segment we're introducing to the DMG Gaming Podcast. It's called the Game Gambit.
All right.
What we're going to do is just go on and, Chat GPT or Grok, and I want to ask it to give us a random game through all eras of gaming. And it's going to choose something, and whatever it chooses, we have to talk about it.
All right.
If we don't know what it is or can't talk about it, then we're going to research it and expose it, see what it is all about. And so hopefully, if you guys recognize this game, hit up chat.
Yep.
Go ahead and throw in some chat.
Fill us in.
Fill us in if you know stuff about this game. If not, we're going to go through it and we can discover it together.
All right.
All right, so let me go to X real quick. All right, great.
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, baby.
All right, we can do that.
Yeah, we can. So this game came out in late 70s, right?
Yes, late 70s.
Late 70s, but I played it early 80s in arcade.
Mm-hmm.
It kept giving me like this weird movie.
The movie Space Invaders.
The girl with like the doesn't make sense that she's wearing like a one piece
bikini. Yeah, or whatever.
In outer space.
Yeah.
But it was giving me some weird stuff. But I just
we'll have to work on the prompt for next time to make it more precise.
All right. So before we start, so this is a new segment, Game Gambit. We're doing it's basically a roulette.
Gotcha. We don't know anything.
We're not picking the subject ahead of time. We don't know it was going to be Space Invaders, but we're going to do it like that. So if you're watching this so I want to make a separate video. If you're watching this standalone video for this right now, check out our live podcast every Tuesday and Friday at 6 p.m. And if you want to tune in for this segment where we're trying to get the community kind of more involved with this, chatting about games like this, especially if we don't know a game. If we end up, but everyone knows Space Invaders.
Yeah,
I would say it was a popular arcade game back in the 80s,
and
they made different renditions of it. It's like Galaga, pretty much like that.
Well, every console made a rendition of this.
Yeah, but Galaga was an arcade too. But I think Space Invaders was before Galaga, right? Am I right on that?
Yes. So Space Invaders, while it was on the arcade, the first time it came to console was in the Atari 2600. And basically the premise of it is you're a spaceship and you hide underneath those little bases, and it's a simple concept. So the invaders, you have to shoot them out of the sky.
Yeah, you control a laser cannon, and you shoot them. Yeah.
And they move left or right, and then they drop down. And as they drop down and they kill more of them, they get faster. So it's basically about speed and coordination. It's a very simple game. It's not much to it.
So this game came out in the late 70s, and then you had all the clones.
Yeah.
Atari
had so many space
very
games.
Early 80s, like 81 or something like that. I think Galaga came out.
Yeah.
And there's so many clones through these games.
Space Star.
It's like Centipede. Then you had
Universe
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Space Invaders. Anyway, I'm going to get back to we want people to kind of join in on the discussion on these, especially if we don't know the game. But this case is different. But we're going to do this every podcast from now going forward. Every podcast we're going to have a Game Gambit. And basically, it's just going to be a roulette on some random game through all eras. It could be a game that hardly anyone's heard of, or it could be kind of a popular game like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be a really popular game. Who knows? But we're going to leave it up to AI to tell us, to pick it for us. So we're not, and again, we're not preparing for this, but we want to talk about it like our personal stories on a game if we played it. If not, then doing the research together and exposing a game. But Space Invaders is a classic game.
I can hear this game.
Arcade game. Yeah, definitely.
I can still hear this game. So my brother had a Atari 2600, and this was one of the games that he had. And I remember playing this nonstop. It's just, but you don't really know that you're playing it over and over. It's restarting and you're just playing it over. This is how entertainment was back in the 80s.
Yeah, and this was before the video game crash of 83. So Japan had something during this time. and it was like the Space Invaders shock or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Like games like this in the late 70s, very early 80s. But it was like economic, like I guess, boom when it came to arcade games, especially in Japan and
Yeah.
the West, because arcade started opening up in your small towns even, and in
Mhm.
malls, shopping centers, whatever like that. You had legit arcades like Aladdin's Castle. Even
Aladdin's
though that's
Castle.
probably, yeah. You remember Aladdin's Castle?
Oh, man, we had one.
Yeah. But anyway,
Sure did.
but you had other things, not even Aladdin's Castle before this, just your like mom and pop arcade, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
In every diner, every whatever
But
restaurant,
the music, dude, like the music, like I could hear the music
I could
that
hear them moving.
yeah, that too. But this really started to get arcade games popular, and this was one of the games of many during that time in the late 70s, early 80s that really got arcades going. But then
So back
go ahead.
back then arcades weren't about beating the game, quote unquote. It was about who get the highest score.
High score and keep
You never
getting your name on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So you would never really beat the game. You would just try to get the highest score.
And then I remember this from these games. Not just Space Invaders, but I remember like going to our arcade in the mall in Columbus.
Mhm.
I used to play games like this all the time, and I'd get my high score. I'd beat everybody. I have my name up top as
Mhm.
like I'm 6 or 7, dude.
Yeah.
Getting high scores in these games. And then next week when my dad or mom would bring me back and stuff like that, I would check to my high score. You know what I mean? Like because it was like just a rep thing. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's my high score, baby. But if my high score was beaten, I was like, nope, get them quarters ready. We're going at it. Ain't
That was back that
not
was back
beating
that was
me.
that was back then when you could play all day for $10.
Yeah, all day, dude.
Yeah.
$10, dude.
Oh
That
yeah.
take you a long way,
Yep.
especially in these games.
Yep.
Um, but it's curious. Like these games had a pattern, but they used to be they you could spend very little money due to the fact you had lives. And the
Yeah.
longer you played these games, you got more lives. But it's
Mhm.
funny we say that, but there was a time they changed that because they wanted people to spend more money in arcades.
Yep.
So it made it harder to get
That made
lives.
them harder.
It
Yep.
was like late 80s, I'd say, early 90s they did this. After the video game what is it? The bust in 83, right? The
Yeah.
arcade, when they were coming out with all these crap consoles and video gaming just took a hit and they didn't think it was ever
Mhm.
going to recover until Nintendo came out or the NES came out. But in the late 80s, early 90s, they changed this up a lot to make it harder to get lives and harder games.
Oh yeah.
And that's where we got a lot of the early Nintendo games from. Remember how hard those early Nintendo games were? Even the
Dude,
early Castlevanias and stuff like that. They
dude,
were a
Double Dragon
byproduct of
was
arcade. Let me finish. They were a byproduct of arcade games of the difficulty setting to make people, you know, easier for them to die, harder to
yeah.
get lives, to spend more money. Those early NES games were actually a byproduct of that. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, Double Dragon was extremely hard. I remember playing Double Dragon and Conan the Barbarian. Those games are extremely hard. And then so what they did then as games evolved into like games like Mortal Kombat and stuff, they would put it on the highest setting, like the very hard. And
Yep.
that's how they would make their money because they knew that you had to be really, really good to beat the game. And they also knew that everybody wasn't really, really good.
Yeah. Yep. All right, brother. You got anything else on Space Invaders?
That's it, man. It's a classic.
Dude,
It's a classic.
that brings good memories back in the day.
You know,
Being go all those arcades and stuff like that. You remember the birthday parties at the arcades? People
oh
would have
yeah.
birthday parties at
Yeah,
arcades
dude,
and
we
stuff
had
like that.
so before there was
That
Chuck E.
cheap
Cheese, it used
ass
to be
pizza.
dude, before it was Chuck E. Cheese, it was called
Way before
Showbiz.
that. Yep.
It's called Showbiz. And we had one here in Gulfport. And dude, I remember every time, let me tell you the three best arcades that I remember seeing when I walk in. I'd walk in, my little fat ass would run in, ready for the pizza, and I would see Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, Afterburner, and Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Those were the three biggest games.
Dude, So like games like this that came out in late 70s where got popular in arcade, that's really where, because Aladdin's Castle was in the about 1976. There were very few. There's like
Yeah.
there's not known then.
They didn't
But
get real big until like the
the
80s.
big these big arcade games like Space Invaders and others really put it on the map.
Yeah.
And I remember Aladdin's Castle just started to pop up everywhere, dude.
Every
Like
mall
we
seemed to
got one
have
in
one.
our city. Yeah, every mall, shopping center had a Aladdin's Castle.
Yeah.
But it's really thankful, because of these kind of games that
Like
came
that,
out in the
right?
late 70s,
Yep.
early 80s. But dude, I just had so many fond memories playing games like this. I remember Gauntlet on the
Dude,
remember
I love
Gauntlet,
that.
the original
Yes.
Gauntlet. You could
Yes.
play like
That was the original action RPG.
yeah, it was, and it was
Yep.
4-player, and all 4
Yep.
players could play on the same arcade machine, dude.
Yep.
Those were
I
awesome.
can hear that game.
Oh my
God, I can hear
god,
that.
dude! You remember Smash TV? Oh no,
Smash
was it called
TV.
Smash TV? You played
Yep.
like it's similar to Gauntlet, except it was more like shoot 'em up
Yeah.
type. Dude, that was all that guy come on the screen and stuff. You just want to punch him in the face, dude. But yeah, games like that, dude. I mean, we're getting off topic from Space Invaders, but it's really this is like some of the OGs we're talking about. Space Invaders is one of the OGs of many arcade games. Before Galaga.
That's how you
But
should put it.
Usually people say Galaga. They think of Galaga before they do Space Invaders. Some people do, but Space Invaders was 3 years before Galaga. Is the real OG.
Yeah. You know what you should do is you should. This is how you should punish your kids if they're bad. You should make them play Atari.
Oh god, dude. Pitfall or something.
Yeah, make them play games with old
Pitfall
graphics.
Was hard.
They do. It was hard, but you have to make them play games with old graphics so they can appreciate. So they'll never be bad again.
My oldest daughter would love that.
Oh yeah, she probably would.
She would play it all day. My son would get pissed off.
I know.
He would get pissed off. He gets pissed off at these new games that are really easy. I can imagine him in old school
Son,
NES.
You've been bad. You will stand here for 2 hours and you'll play Space Invaders.
Golly, dude. I remember how hard we had it as gamers in the early NES days. Man. Because of those damn arcade games. Because of arcade games, they made these games so hard.
And people don't understand, before we didn't have internet, so you didn't know how good a game was going to be. So imagine going and spending $50 on Rambo.
Yeah. But yeah, dude.
We had no reviews. Nothing told us how good the game was. You just had to find out if it was terrible.
I'm so glad this was the one that generated.
Yeah, it was good.
Because it's a good introduction into our new segment.
Yeah.
Game Gambit. This is what these are called. Again, Gambit. If you're watching the video or you're watching live right now, this is going to be a new segment. It's just going to be a randomly generated game from all of gaming of all time.
Yep.
It could be anything. And we're going to talk about it. Or at least try to. If not, do the research on it.
Yeah.
All right. And if we want more people to get involved in this stuff and start chatting, especially if you played some of these games before, we want to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, talk to us.
All right. Put your comments below the video. Your favorite memories of these old school arcades and Aladdin's Castle, or even your mom and pop arcades.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a fond memory of Space Invaders, make a comment. But yeah, dude, I'm so glad it was this one, because this is history right here, right?
It is. Yeah.
It is history of gaming, because again, this was before the bust of 1983, the gaming bust, when we thought when gaming was said to be dead. Then who comes to save the day? Nintendo, the NES, right?
Yep.
But this was before. This is one that was popular. Everyone loved these kind of games. But anyway, that's the game Gambit. That's our segment for it.
There it is.
All right.
Well, Ed, we have talked for way too long.
We have.
We've enjoyed it. This is our longest podcast, which is cool though.
Well, might want to get used to it.
That's right.
Going forward, this is what it's going to look like.
Yep. So,